Hi, my name is Sophie, and I'm 22 years old. That's how I usually start when someone asks me to tell them about myself. But the truth? I don't even know where to begin. Sometimes I feel like I was born tired, like my soul came into this world already carrying weight it wasn't ready for. I grew up on the south side of Boston, in a narrow two-bedroom home that leaned slightly to one side, just like everything else on our block. The paint peeled off the walls. The heater rattled like it was coughing up its last breath. And the floorboards creaked so loudly at night that I'd often hold my breath just to make sure I wasn't hearing ghosts. My parents, Henry and Barbara, did what they could. At least, that's what I used to believe. Henry pushed a fruit cart around the nearby neighborhoods, selling bruised bananas and overripe oranges to people who never looked him in the eye. Barbara cleaned offices downtown, night shifts, mostly. She would drag herself home around sunrise, smelling like bleach, with her eyes red and swollen from cleaning chemicals and sleep deprivation. We weren't just poor. We were invisible. No one saw us. And if they did, they looked right through us. I never had my own bedroom growing up. I shared a narrow mattress on the floor with the cockroaches and hope. We couldn't afford luxuries like meat or new shoes. A birthday cake was a dream. Electricity was inconsistent. And yet, my mother always said we were blessed to have a roof. Maybe she was right, but there were days I stared up at the leaking ceiling and wondered if that was true, or if she just said it so we wouldn't completely break. I started learning not to ask for too much at a young age. If I asked for a jacket when winter came, my mother would just hand me another sweater. "Layer up," she'd say. If I said I was hungry, she'd offer me plain bread and a glass of water. "Your father's trying," she'd remind me. And maybe he was. But some nights, he came home with nothing but tired eyes and a plastic bag with a few spoiled tomatoes. When I turned 22, something shifted inside me. I couldn't take the silence anymore. The silence of sacrifice. The silence of always putting myself second. That's when I decided to go out into the city and find work, not just to help them, but to prove to myself that I was more than just a ghost inside a crumbling house. I thought life would start giving back once I started giving everything I had. But I was wrong. It was just the beginning. At 22, with no college degree, no connections, and barely any confidence, I stepped into the world with nothing but determination and a battered second-hand purse. I took the Red Line train across the city, clutching my subway pass like a lifeline. The train would rattle past cleaner streets, newer buildings, and neighborhoods so rich they felt like dreams stitched into brick and marble. My first job came through a neighbor's cousin. A housekeeper had quit suddenly, and they needed a replacement fast. The address was in Back Bay, a part of Boston where the homes had gates taller than most apartment buildings. I'd only seen that part of the city through the smudged window of my father's fruit cart as a child. When I arrived at the Miranda estate, I hesitated before ringing the bell. The house looked like something out of a history book. White columns, black iron gates, perfect hedges. I felt like I was trespassing just by standing on the steps. A tall woman with perfectly straight blonde hair and red lipstick answered the door. "Miranda." Her eyes scanned me, lingering just long enough to make me feel like I didn't belong. Without a smile, she handed me a list of tasks. "You're late," she said, even though I wasn't. "I don't tolerate laziness." I swallowed my words and nodded. I needed this job. Not just for the money, but for the chance to believe I could climb out of the life I'd known. Inside, everything gleamed: glass vases, polished floors, designer furniture. The air smelled expensive. Every object looked like it cost more than our entire house. I felt like a shadow moving through a museum, afraid that breathing too hard would break something. I worked as quickly and carefully as I could, moving from room to room, wiping surfaces, folding towels, vacuuming carpets softer than my bed at home. She didn't thank me. She didn't even look at me. But I showed up every day, early, and left only after the list was complete. On my way home each evening, I'd stare out the subway window and wonder how two worlds like these could exist in the same city. How some people had chandeliers above their tubs and others, like me, hoped the ceiling didn't collapse during the night. But I held on, because for the first time in my life, I was earning money on my own. Even if I still handed every dollar to my mother the moment I walked through the door. It was a Thursday afternoon, gray sky, silent breeze, the kind of day that carried tension in the air. I had just finished vacuuming the guest lounge at Miranda's house when I noticed the sunlight catching on something delicate near the fireplace. There, centered on a marble shelf, stood a glass figurine, a swan with wings curled upward, frozen mid-flight. It sparkled like ice under the chandelier, and for a moment, I just stared. It was the kind of thing I'd only seen in magazines or behind locked cabinets at antique shops. I didn't touch it. I didn't even want to get near it. But as I dusted the shelf just below it, my elbow brushed against the edge of a decorative book. The motion was small, barely a nudge, but enough. The book shifted. It bumped the shelf. And the figurine began to tilt. I lunged forward, hardened my throat, but I was too late. It crashed to the floor with a sound like breaking stars. The silence afterward was deafening. My ears rang. My stomach dropped. I stood frozen, staring at the shattered pieces, glittering shards of what used to be something beautiful and irreplaceable. And then I heard the heels. Sharp, deliberate, fast. Miranda appeared in the doorway, eyes falling immediately to the floor. Her expression twisted, as if she'd just walked in on a crime scene. "You clumsy little idiot," she hissed, stepping closer. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I tried to speak, to explain, but no words came. My mouth felt like sandpaper. "That was a gift from my grandmother, imported from Venice," she snapped. "Do you know how much that's worth? More than your entire life." Then, with a rage I didn't expect, she slapped me. The sound of her palm against my cheek echoed louder than the glass ever did. My face burned, more from shock than pain. She didn't stop there. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin, and dragged me through the hallway like I was nothing, like trash to be taken out. At the front door, I barely managed to snatch my purse before she shoved me outside. "Get out," she spat. "You're fired. And don't you dare show your face here again." The door slammed behind me. It had started to drizzle. Cold, prickling rain slid down my face, mixing with the tears I hadn't even realized were falling. I stood there on the front steps, trembling, my hands shaking around the strap of my bag. I had lost the job. Again. And this time, it wasn't just money, it was dignity. And I had none left. I don't know how long I stood there, soaked and stunned. Time seemed to stop as the rain seeped through my clothes, chilling me straight to the bone. The sting on my cheek pulsed with every heartbeat, but what hurt more was the shame. I had tried so hard to be careful, to be invisible, to do everything right. And still, I ended up here. Alone. Unemployed. And completely humiliated. I wanted to scream, but my voice was buried somewhere under all the years of being told to stay quiet, to be grateful, to not ask for more. The street was quiet except for the patter of rain against the sidewalk. Cars passed now and then, their tires slicing through puddles, but no one looked my way. I might as well have been a shadow. I sat down on the cold stone step, hugging my knees to my chest, my chin trembling as raindrops slid down my forehead. I couldn't go home. Not yet. My mother would scold me. My father would sigh, disappointed. And the little bit of hope I had left would shrivel inside their silence. I pressed my forehead to my knees and closed my eyes. And that's when I heard it, the soft rumble of an engine slowing down. A sleek, black car pulled up to the curb, its tinted windows fogged lightly by the rain. I didn't move. I assumed it was just someone waiting for a gate to open or a rideshare drop-off. Then the engine stopped. The driver's door opened. And from the car stepped a tall man, probably in his late 50s, wearing a dark gray suit that looked far too clean for a day like this. He had silver hair, carefully styled, and eyes that held something between concern and confusion. He didn't speak right away. He just looked at me. Or more specifically, he looked at my neck. Confused, I instinctively reached up and touched the small locket I always wore, an old thing I'd had since I was a toddler. I didn't know where it came from. My mother never talked about it. I just knew I'd had it forever. It was oval, silver, with tiny flower engravings, worn smooth over time. His expression changed, subtle but intense. Something like recognition passed over his face. Then he took a cautious step forward. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice low and careful, like he was trying not to frighten a wounded animal. I nodded, barely. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a handkerchief, clean and white, and handed it to me. I stared at him, confused, guarded, but something in his gaze made me feel safe.
Seen.
And that scared me more than anything. I took the handkerchief from his hand slowly, unsure why I trusted him. Maybe it was the way he waited patiently, not demanding anything. Or maybe it was the way he looked at me, not like I was broken, but like I was familiar. He didn't ask too many questions, just offered, "Would you like me to give you a ride home?" I hesitated. Every voice in my head told me not to get in a stranger's car. But he didn't feel like a stranger. It was something in his eyes, searching, almost desperate, like he was trying to fill in the blanks of a story only he knew. So I nodded. The ride was quiet at first. His car smelled like leather and faint cologne, nothing like the dusty heat of my father's old delivery cart. The seats were warm. I sank into one, still shivering slightly, my fingers clenched around the handkerchief like it was a rope. He finally spoke. "What's your name?" "Sophie," I said, barely above a whisper. "Sophie," he repeated softly, as if testing how it felt on his tongue. Then added, "How old are you?" 22. He gave a small nod but didn't follow up. Just kept driving with both hands on the wheel, and his brow slightly furrowed, like he was thinking too hard about something. "Where do you live?" he asked eventually. I told him my street name and hesitated before giving the house number. Something about his presence made me want to lie, to protect myself, but also made me want to tell the truth. He didn't feel like a threat. He felt like a question I didn't know I had. When we pulled up to our worn-down house, the contrast between his car and our cracked driveway hit me like a slap. I suddenly felt ashamed of the peeling paint, the leaning porch, the sagging front door. He parked and stepped out before I could stop him. I rushed out too, trying to get to the door first, but he was already there. He turned to me gently. "Let's go see your family." The words froze me. He said them with such certainty, as if this wasn't the end of a ride, but the beginning of something. My mother, Barbara, opened the door when she heard the car. Her face tightened the moment she saw William. My father, Henry, appeared behind her, his arms crossed and eyes cautious. William introduced himself with polite calm. "Good afternoon. My name is William. I found your daughter outside a friend's house. She seemed upset. I just wanted to make sure she got home safe." Barbara forced a smile. "That was very kind of you. But it wasn't necessary. Sophie often comes home like this." I flinched at her words, but William just nodded slowly. Then his eyes dropped once again to the locket on my neck. "Has she always had that?" he asked softly. Barbara's face twitched just slightly. "Since she was a baby," she said. "It was in the box at the shelter. We assumed it was from her real parents." That was the first time I ever heard anyone say that I wasn't theirs. And suddenly, the air shifted. I looked at William. He was staring at me now, not just curiously, but intently, like he was looking through time. And in that moment, something told me he wasn't done with me yet. That night, the house felt colder than usual. Not because of the weather, but because of the silence. The kind of silence that holds too much weight. The kind that feels like it's hiding something. After William left, my parents barely looked at me. My father, Henry, muttered something about outsiders sticking their noses where they don't belong before disappearing into the back room. My mother, Barbara, sat at the kitchen table, her fingers tapping nervously on the chipped wood surface. I waited for her to say something, anything, but she didn't. She just kept glancing at my neck. At the locket. I held it in my hand, suddenly aware of its presence, like never before. "I didn't know I wasn't yours," I said quietly. Her fingers froze. "We raised you, didn't we?" she snapped, not meeting my eyes. "What difference does it make?" "A big one," I whispered. She stood up suddenly and turned away. "You should be grateful." Those words echoed in my chest like a curse. I went to my room that night, my thoughts racing. For as long as I could remember, I had believed this was my life. That Barbara and Henry were my real parents. That I was just another poor girl trying to survive. But now, cracks had started forming in that story. And something told me those cracks would only get wider. The next few days were strange. My mother avoided eye contact. My father left earlier than usual to sell fruit and came home later, saying nothing. I noticed whispered conversations behind closed doors, glances that stopped when I entered the room. They were hiding something. I knew it in my bones. Then, on Saturday morning, something happened that confirmed my suspicion. As I was cleaning up in our tiny bathroom, I knocked over my old hairbrush. When I picked it up, I noticed something strange. It was gone. The strand of hair I'd seen caught in the bristles earlier that week was missing. I hadn't thought much of it before. But now, I remembered the way William had lingered near the hallway when he walked me in. How his hand brushed against the counter. Had he taken it? A chill ran through me. Why would he need my hair unless he suspected something? I sat down on the edge of the bathtub, gripping the sides with trembling hands. Could it be possible? Could I be someone else? The following Tuesday, I got a call from one of Miranda's wealthy acquaintances, Eleanor, a woman I had met only once during a brief hallway encounter. Her regular cleaner had fallen ill, and she needed someone discreet and quick. My name had apparently come up. I didn't want to say yes. After everything with Miranda, I wasn't sure I could handle another cold mansion and another rich woman who wouldn't even learn my name. But I needed the money. And something inside me, some restless pull, said I should go. Eleanor lived just a few blocks from Miranda, in a large brick estate with wide stone steps and black-painted shutters. The door was already open when I arrived, and she didn't waste time with greetings. Dining room. Polish the silver before noon. My guests are particular. Then she walked off without another word. I nodded silently and stepped inside, the marble floors echoing beneath my shoes. I kept my head down and got to work, gently polishing each piece of silverware like it was made of glass. The silence was oddly comforting until the heavy front door creaked open again. I expected it to be one of Eleanor's high society friends. But it wasn't. It was William. He stepped into the hallway like he belonged there, his presence filling the room with tension. His eyes landed on me immediately. For a moment, I didn't move, didn't breathe. He looked different. Sharper. More certain. Behind him, Eleanor entered, her heels snapping like gunfire on the tile floor. "What is she doing here?" she demanded, her voice full of irritation. "You know this girl, William? She's nothing but trouble. I've heard stories she's a liar. A thief. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she—" "That's my daughter you're talking about, Eleanor." The words cut through the room like a lightning strike. Everything stopped. Even Eleanor froze mid-step. I turned to him, stunned. My heart hammered in my chest, and my knees went weak. What did you say?" William stepped forward, his eyes locked on mine. "You're my daughter, Sophie. Your real name is Charlotte Bennett." The world spun. My legs gave out, and I had to steady myself against the table. He pulled a small photo from his jacket. A faded image of a toddler with wide brown eyes wearing a tiny silver locket, my locket. Then he unfolded a sheet of paper. My name. His name. DNA results. He had taken the strand of hair from my brush. Had it tested. The results were undeniable. "I've looked for you for 16 years, he said softly. And the moment I saw that locket, I knew. I didn't know whether to scream or collapse. I had dreamed of belonging somewhere my whole life, but I never imagined I already had. And just like that, everything I thought I knew about myself shattered, much like the figurine I had broken days earlier. That afternoon felt like a dream, one I wasn't sure I was ready to wake up from. William didn't ask if I wanted to come. He simply said, "We have to talk to them." And I knew who he meant. We got in his car and drove in silence through the streets of Boston. My hands trembled in my lap, my thoughts tangled in 1,000 directions. What would I say to Barbara and Henry? What would they say to me? When we turned onto my street, I saw the flashing blue and red lights before the car even stopped. Two patrol cars were parked outside my house, and my mother was standing on the porch, arms crossed, her face pale and tight with worry. My father hovered behind her, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. As we stepped out of the car, two officers approached. One of them nodded at William. "We're ready when you are, Mr. Bennett." Barbara's eyes widened. "You called the police?" she shouted. "How dare you come to my house with—" William raised a hand, calm but firm. "I'm not here to argue, Barbara," he said. "I'm here for the truth." He turned to me, gave a gentle nod, then looked her straight in the eye. "Why did you take my daughter?" The silence that followed was long and suffocating. For a moment, I thought she might deny it, pretend he was crazy. But then her face cracked. Tears welled in her eyes. "I saw her in the park," she whispered. "All alone.
Crying.
No one was around. I waited. I waited almost an hour. But no one came." My chest tightened. "I thought maybe she was meant to be mine," she said, her voice shaking. "We couldn't have children. Henry didn't want to go to an agency. And when I saw her, she looked so lost. I took her. I thought I could love her enough to make it right." My heart ached. Because no matter what she had done, part of me still wanted to believe she had loved me. Henry didn't say much. He just stared at the floor, his hands clenched in fists. He looked ashamed, but also relieved. Like a secret he had buried for years was finally crawling out. The police officers stepped forward. "Barbara Hayes and Henry Hayes, you are under arrest for kidnapping and obstruction of identity," one officer said, reading them their rights. Barbara sobbed as they placed her in handcuffs.
Henry didn't resist.
I stood on the sidewalk, numb, watching as the only parents I had ever known were led away in silence. William stood beside me, his hand resting gently on my back. "You're safe now," he said. But I didn't feel safe. Not yet. I felt like a puzzle someone had scrambled and left on the table. And now the pieces were finally being put back together. The drive to William's house didn't feel like freedom. It felt like stepping into someone else's life, a life I wasn't sure I belonged in. His estate sat behind tall trees and black iron gates, a world apart from the broken sidewalks and leaking ceilings I had always known. The house was beautiful, warm, and full of light. But more than that, it was full of silence, not the tense, painful kind I had grown up with, but the kind that came from peace. William walked me through the foyer and showed me a bedroom. "My bedroom," he said softly. It had soft white curtains, a real wooden desk, and a bed that felt like clouds under my fingertips. I stood in the doorway, afraid to enter. He noticed. "You don't have to rush," he said. "We'll take things slow. This is your home now, but I'll never push you." That night, I didn't sleep much. My mind was too full. I sat on the bed holding my locket, the one piece of my past that had connected me to the truth. I kept repeating the words William had said earlier. "Your real name is Charlotte Bennett." It felt foreign and familiar all at once, like a memory I hadn't lived but somehow remembered. Over the next few days, William introduced me to a lawyer who helped start the legal process to restore my identity. He also scheduled counseling sessions with a kind woman named Dana, who helped me process everything I'd been through. "You've lived a life of survival," Dana said during one session. "Now it's time to learn how to live." I spent hours exploring the house, family photos, old books, sunlit hallways. William gave me space, but he was always nearby. Some nights, we'd sit by the fireplace. He'd tell me stories about my birth mother, about how she'd hum lullabies and wear blue scarves. She had passed away years ago, and he had never stopped searching for me since. I felt angry sometimes. Not at William, but at the life I had lost. The birthdays I never had. The warmth I had been denied. But then I'd look at him, at the way his eyes softened when he saw me, and I knew I wasn't alone anymore. He didn't just rescue me from Barbara and Henry. He gave me back the part of me I never knew was missing. And for the first time in my life, I started to feel like I had a future. A month passed, then two. Seasons began to shift. Leaves turned golden and fell like whispers outside the windows of the Bennett estate, and I found myself breathing easier with every passing day. I wasn't Sophie anymore. I was Charlotte Bennett, a name that had once been taken from me and now returned like a lost heartbeat. Some days, I still felt like a guest in my own story. I'd catch myself flinching when I heard a door slam or reaching for permission before taking a glass of water. William would gently remind me, "You don't have to ask, Charlotte. This is your home." I started attending classes at a nearby college, with William's support. I wasn't just rebuilding my identity, I was rewriting my future. I found joy in little things: morning walks, hot coffee, real books, soft bedsheets. I laughed more. I smiled without guilt. I finally looked people in the eyes. My locket stayed around my neck, always. Not because it held my past, but because it reminded me how fragile the truth can be, and how powerful it becomes once it's found. One quiet evening, I stood in front of a mirror in my new bedroom. I stared at the reflection of a young woman with tired but bright eyes, standing straighter than before. Stronger. I touched the locket at my collarbone and whispered to myself, I spent 22 years trying to survive in someone else's story. Now I'm finally living mine. Outside, William was setting the table for dinner. He had just returned from the garden, carrying a few flowers he wanted to place by the window, something his late wife used to do. He smiled when I walked in. "How does it feel," he asked, "to be home?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I sat across from him, tucked my locket beneath my sweater, and smiled back. It feels like I was never meant to be anywhere else. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I was simply found. If this story moved you even a little, don't forget to like the video to support our channel. What would you have done in Sophie's place? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. And if you enjoy real, emotional stories like this, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. New stories every week. True pain. Real healing. Unexpected justice. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes the truth finds you even when you've stopped searching.